Put it on, Liana. Her mother's voice cracked like a whip in the cold morning air. The ivory gown shimmered under the light, mocking her with its beauty. Lace and pearls, stitched for another woman, her sister, Lena. The daughter everyone loved. The daughter who had vanished hours before the wedding, leaving chaos in her wake. Liana pressed her back against the wall, shaking her head. Please, Mama, I can't. Her father's palm slammed onto the vanity. You will. Do you have any idea what this family stands to lose? The Lee Corporation won't tolerate humiliation. Her heart pounded. But he'll know I'm not her. Her mother grabbed her arm so hard Liana gasped. He won't. You look enough alike, and no one will dare question it. You'll marry Han Jun-ho, and keep your mouth shut. The zipper tore upward, the gown hugging her body like a trap. The fabric was suffocating, and so was the silence that followed. Her reflection in the mirror didn't look like her. It looked like a ghost dressed in borrowed dreams. You owe us this, her father hissed. Everything you have, your education, your life, it's because of us. So you'll do this one thing, and you'll save our name.
Oh.
The word stung more than the grip on her arm. She'd been born to save Lena once before, a match for her sister's blood, her marrow. She had given her body once to keep Lena alive. Now they wanted her to give her soul. The car ride to the cathedral was a blur of panic and perfume. Her parents sat beside her, all smiles when the reporters gathered outside. The cameras didn't catch her trembling hands or the tears glistening under her veil. The church doors swung open, and the music began. At the altar stood Han Jun-ho, tall, expression carved from stone, the weight of his empire in his stance. His eyes locked on her as she approached, searching, sharp. She could almost feel him peeling away the lie with every step she took. The priest's voice echoed faintly. Do you, Miss Lena Hart? Her lips parted, but her voice barely came out. I do. Her parents sighed in relief from the front row. The cameras flashed. The applause thundered. Jun-ho reached for her hand. His fingers were cool, his grip unyielding. When he leaned closer, his breath brushed her cheek. You may have fooled them, he murmured, voice quiet but dangerous, but I'll find out who you really are. Liana's pulse raced beneath her skin. Beneath the veil, a single tear slid down her face. She hadn't just married her sister's fiancé. She'd inherited her sister's lie. And the man beside her, the one everyone envied, would be the first to destroy her if he ever found out. The mansion was silent when Liana entered it for the first time. No laughter, no warmth, only marble, glass, and the faint echo of her own footsteps. Han Jun-ho didn't look back as he handed his jacket to a butler and walked ahead, his posture perfect, his presence heavy enough to silence the air itself. Your room is at the end of the hall, he said without turning. We'll keep appearances when necessary. Beyond that, stay out of my way. Liana's throat tightened. Yes, Mr. Han. His gaze flicked over his shoulder, cold and precise. You'll call me Jun-ho in public. At home, I'd prefer silence. He disappeared into his study, leaving her alone in a palace that felt more like a museum of his success, polished, flawless, and utterly empty. Liana stood still, clutching her bouquet until her fingers ached. The maids watched her curiously, whispering behind polite smiles. None of them knew. None of them could. She was living under her sister's name, wearing her ring, her title, her life. Days passed in quiet isolation. Liana kept to herself, avoiding the wing where Jun-ho spent his days working. He didn't come home some nights, and when he did, he barely acknowledged her. She cooked for herself in the smaller kitchen, helped the staff clean when no one was looking, and spent her evenings volunteering anonymously at the homeless shelter nearby, something that reminded her that kindness still existed somewhere. He never asked where she went. He didn't care, or so she thought. Until the night, she found him standing by the window, watching her return. You were out late, he said flatly. Liana froze, her hand still on the door handle. I was just helping at the shelter downtown. His brows arched slightly. Shelter? Yes, she said quietly, eyes lowering. They needed volunteers for the evening meal.
He didn't respond.
For a long moment, he simply stared at her, as if trying to reconcile her gentle tone with the scheming heiress he thought he'd married. Then he turned away, muttering, "Do whatever you want. Just don't bring trouble to my doorstep." But that night, for the first time, she saw something flicker behind his calm: confusion. A week later, it happened. Junho had returned home earlier than usual, realizing he'd left an important document in his study. The sun had barely set when he stepped inside the mansion, his mind preoccupied with contracts and figures, until he heard voices. Harsh ones. Familiar ones. He stopped in the hallway, heart instinctively tightening when he recognized Liana's father's voice. "You will not ruin this for us, Liana." His steps slowed. Through the half-open door of the sitting room, he saw her parents standing over her. Liana was cornered, her back pressed against the wall, her hands trembling as she tried to reason with them. "I'm not saying anything," she whispered. "But please stop coming here. You'll only make things worse." Her mother's hand flew out, striking her across the face. The sound cracked through the air. Junho froze. His body went rigid. "Do you think you can talk to us like that?" her father barked. "You ungrateful girl. You wouldn't even exist if not for Lena's illness. We gave you life, and you'll do what we say." Liana flinched, tears filling her eyes. "I've done everything you asked. I married him. Isn't that enough?" "Not until we get what's ours," her father snarled. "Don't forget, Han Junho still thinks you're Lena. If you tell him the truth, we'll all go down. Do you understand me?" Junho's blood ran cold. The truth. His hand tightened on the doorframe. Liana's voice broke. "I won't let you hurt him, or use him for your greed anymore. I'm done being your scapegoat." Her father raised his hand again, but this time, the door slammed open. Junho stepped inside, his presence like thunder. "That's enough." Her parents froze. Her mother's expression changed instantly into a trembling smile. "Oh, Mr. Han, we were just visiting. You know how emotional family can get." "Get out." His voice was low, dangerous, and final. Her father stammered, Of course. He grabbed his wife's arm, dragging her out. They left as quickly as they came, the door slamming behind them. The silence afterward was unbearable. Liana stood there, shaking, her cheek red from the slap. Her eyes darted toward him, fear and shame twisting in her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to see that." Junho's jaw tightened. What did he mean? He still thinks you're Lena? Her breath caught. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a broken voice, she told him everything. How she was born because her sister needed a bone marrow donor, how she had always lived in Lena's shadow, how her parents had forced her into the wedding to save their contracts. She told him about the years of being unwanted, about giving everything she had, and never being enough. And when her words failed, she broke down completely. Junho stood frozen at first. Then, quietly, he crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. "Enough," he said softly. "You've suffered enough." For the first time, she didn't feel cold in his presence. His hand rested gently on her back, and she sobbed against his chest. That night, something shifted between them. The walls began to crack. The silence softened. And somewhere between pain and understanding, they began to see each other. Not as strangers, not as pawns, but as two broken souls forced into a lie neither of them asked for. The rain started not long after her parents left. It came down hard against the glass walls of the study, streaking the night with sound. Liana sat curled on the couch, still wearing the same cream blouse she had thrown on that morning, the fabric now damp with tears. Across the room, Junho stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the storm like it held the answers he needed. Neither spoke. The only sound was rain and the faint rhythm of their breathing. Finally, he turned. "You should have told me." Her voice cracked. "Would you have believed me?" He hesitated. The truth was written across his face, no. For the first time, shame replaced pride in his eyes. "I thought you were like them," he said quietly. "The dinners, the contracts, the endless performance. I didn't look past the lie because it was easier to hate you than to understand you." Liana looked up, eyes red and glassy. You were never meant to understand me, Junho. I was never meant to be here. The way she said his name made something shift inside him. He walked closer, each step deliberate, until the distance between them vanished. He crouched before her, the stormlight cutting sharp lines across his face. Yet you are, he murmured. And I don't regret it anymore. Her breath hitched. Why? Because now I see you. The words broke her. All the years of being unseen, unchosen, forgotten. Something inside her finally gave way. She covered her face with her hands, but he gently drew them away, his thumb brushing away the tear that fell. Liana, he whispered, you don't have to be her. Not here. Not with me. The rain roared louder, the house seeming to hold its breath. When he leaned in, she didn't move away. His lips touched her forehead first, soft, reverent. Then her cheek, the corner of her mouth. It wasn't hunger, it was release, the quiet breaking of two people who had run out of reasons to fight. When he finally kissed her, the world outside vanished. The storm became their witness, thunder rolling like a heartbeat. Her hands found his shirt, trembling as she clutched the fabric. His fingers traced the curve of her jaw, as though memorizing proof she was real. The kiss deepened, slow, searching, desperate. It was the kind of kiss that rewrote every lie between them. And when they finally pulled apart, breathless, she rested her forehead against his. Junho, she whispered. Sho, his voice was rough now. You don't owe me an explanation. Just stay. He led her toward the balcony doors, where the scent of rain drifted in. The curtains billowed, and for a moment it felt like the world outside had stopped spinning. His arms wrapped around her, strong and steady, holding her as though he could keep every ghost away. The night faded to quiet. Their silhouettes merged against the window as the storm softened to a whisper. It wasn't possession. It was forgiveness. Not lust, but the fragile beginning of love. 2 weeks later, Seoul glittered under 1,000 chandeliers. The Lee Corporation's annual gala filled the ballroom with laughter, champagne, and cameras, exactly the kind of world that had once suffocated Liana. Tonight, though, she wasn't invisible. Junho's hand rested lightly at her back, his quiet presence an anchor. When people whispered, it was admiration now, not speculation. You look beautiful, he said under his breath. She smiled, shy and disbelieving. You told me that yesterday. And I meant it twice. For the first time since the wedding, her heart felt steady. The peace shattered with a single, chilling voice. Interesting dress, sister. I thought it would look better on me. Every conversation in the hall froze. Standing in the doorway was Lena. Perfect hair, perfect smile, eyes burning with venom. Cameras turned instantly. Liana's breath caught. And Miss Hart, one reporter gasped. But you're alive and betrayed, Lena said sweetly, stepping forward. My dear sister stole my fiancé while I was ill. She tricked Han Junho into marrying her under my name. Gasps rippled across the room. Liana's parents stood behind Lena, pretending shock, then pity. We tried to stop her. Her mother murmured loudly enough for everyone to hear. But she wouldn't listen. Liana felt the floor tilt beneath her. Junho's grip on her hand tightened. Enough, he said. He stepped in front of her, voice low but carrying through the hall. You think I didn't know? He said, eyes locked on Lena. You think I'd build my life beside someone without learning who she truly is? The crowd went silent. Junho lifted his phone and tapped the screen. A projector lit up the far wall. Images, videos, bank statements. Lena's voice in recordings, planning her escape with her lover. Her parents' signatures on false contracts, their embezzlement trails traced line by line. And one grainy clip from the mansion, Liana flinching as her father raised his hand, then his own voice breaking through. That's enough. Gasps turned to murmurs, murmurs to outrage. Junho lowered the phone. You all wanted a scandal, he said calmly. Here it is. The only liar here tonight is the woman who abandoned her vows and the parents who sold both their daughters. Lena's face drained of color. You. How? You taught me what deceit looks like, he cut in. And Liana taught me what truth feels like. He turned toward his wife. This woman, his voice softened, is my wife. Not by accident, not by pity, but because she is stronger than all the lies you built around her. The applause started small, from a distant corner, then swelled until the chandeliers shook with it. Liana could barely see through her tears. When Junho turned back to her, his eyes held nothing but pride. You once said you were never meant to be here, he whispered. But you're exactly where you belong. Epilogue. The little bell above the bakery door chimed softly as Liana set a tray of freshly baked pastries on the counter. The scent of warm butter and sugar filled the air, a fragrance that felt like peace. The morning sun painted the walls gold, slipping across the polished shelves and the delicate flowers that Han Junho insisted she keep by the window. He said the world always needed a touch of beauty, and she, smiling, never argued. It had been a year since the gala. A year since the night everything broke and began again. Her parents were gone from the city. Their empire collapsed under the weight of their own greed. Her sister had disappeared into quiet exile. And for the first time in her life, Liana wasn't living for anyone's approval, only love. Shouldn't you be resting? She looked up and smiled as Junho stepped into the bakery, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, that familiar glint in his eyes. I'm fine, she said softly, one hand resting on her rounded belly. He's fine too. He crossed the room, sliding his hands over hers, feeling the small flutter beneath her fingers. The tiniest heartbeat, their miracle. I still can't believe it, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. After everything, we're here. She leaned her head against his chest. You saved me, she murmured. From them, from the lies, from myself. He smiled faintly. No, Liana. You saved me first. You showed me what real love looks like. Quiet, strong, and true. They stood like that for a long moment, the world small, simple, and perfect. Outside, the rain began to fall again, soft and steady. But this time, it didn't sound like sorrow. It sounded like life. As he kissed her forehead, the bell above the door chimed again, welcoming a new customer, a new morning, a new chapter. And Liana knew, with absolute certainty, that she had finally come home. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, soft petals dancing in the wind like pale pink snow. Liana stood beneath the old tree behind their home, the same one that Junho had planted the spring after their wedding. In her arms was their son, small, warm, and utterly perfect. His tiny fingers curled around hers, his sleepy breath brushing her skin. She smiled down at him, her heart swelling in a way she never thought possible. Do you think he'll have your eyes? She asked softly as Junho came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He looked over her shoulder at the baby, his expression softening. He already does, he said, voice low. But his spirit, that's all you. Liana laughed quietly, resting her head against his chest. Then heaven help us both. They stood in silence for a while, watching the petals fall, the sun glowing over the garden. Life was simple now, mornings at the bakery, afternoons spent at the shelter, evenings filled with laughter and stories. Junho had learned to slow down, to live in the quiet moments he once overlooked. Sometimes, she'd catch him staring at their son like he still couldn't believe it, that happiness could be this gentle, this real. Do you ever think about the past? She asked after a while. He pressed a kiss into her hair. Only to thank it, he said, because it led me to you. Her throat tightened, tears prickling her eyes. When the baby stirred, Junho reached for him, cradling the child in his arms. Lianjie, he murmured, using the name they'd chosen, a blend of both their names. You have no idea how much you're loved. The baby's eyes fluttered open, dark, curious, and calm, and for a fleeting second, it felt as if the whole world paused. Liana smiled through her tears, reaching out to touch her son's cheek. He's our new beginning, she whispered. No, Junho said gently, meeting her gaze. You were mine. The wind carried the scent of blossoms through the garden, petals catching in her hair, sunlight spilling over them like a blessing. And in that quiet, endless moment, Liana realized that the girl who once lived in the shadows of others had finally stepped into her own light, a wife, a mother, and a woman who had turned pain into something beautiful. Forever wasn't loud or grand. It was this, a heartbeat, a breath, a promise kept.